Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. Imagine reaching into a forgotten drawer, a dusty coin jar, or an old cigar box passed down through generations, and discovering that a single penny inside it could be worth $765,000. Not a gold bar, not a stock certificate, a penny, 1 cent. The same coin most people leave behind at gas stations or toss into cup holders without a second thought. And yet today, this exact mistake is costing Americans millions of dollars because they simply don't know what they're holding. What if the wealth you've been searching for has been hiding in plain sight all along? And what if you've already touched it without realizing its power? This is not fantasy. This is not hype. This is the true story of the 1961 D. Lincoln 1 cent error coin, a rare minting anomaly that has stunned collectors, shocked auction houses, and quietly changed lives. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. Many of these coins are still out there, still undiscovered, still sitting in ordinary homes across the United States. Yes, maybe even yours. If you've ever saved old pennies, inherited coins from a parent or grandparent, or believed that old money might someday mean something more, then what you're about to hear could redefine your financial future. Act 1 begins in 1961 at the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln pennies were produced during a time of national confidence, Cold War tension, and economic ambition. On the surface, nothing seemed unusual. But behind the scenes, something extraordinary happened. A small number of coins were struck with a critical minting error, an imperfection so rare and so desirable that it transformed a 1 cent coin into a 6-figure asset. The irony? These coins were released into circulation like any other penny, quietly blending into pockets, purses, and piggy banks. No alarms, no announcements, just silent opportunity. Here's a question that most people never ask themselves. How many times have you ignored a penny because it looked normal? And how many fortunes have slipped through fingers because someone assumed value only comes in obvious forms? Funny how we'll double-check a $20 bill but never question a penny. Isn't it? That assumption alone has made collectors rich and everyday people unknowingly poor. Because in the coin world, rarity isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. The 1961 D penny error is highly sought after because it represents a perfect storm of scarcity, condition, and historical demand. Only a handful of these error coins are known to exist in top condition, and when one surfaced in the private market, its valuation stunned experts. $765,000. Not theoretical value, not future speculation. Real market demand, real buyers, real money. And demand is only growing as elite collectors compete aggressively to own what they know they may never see again. Now let's pause for a second, because this is where fear and opportunity collide. Every year, priceless coins are unknowingly spent, damaged, or lost forever. Every year, heirs sell collections too quickly, unaware of what's truly inside. And every year, the number of surviving high-grade error pennies drops. Scarcity increases. Prices climb. The window narrows. The market does not wait for those who hesitate. Act 2 is where everything changes, because this is where you step into the story. You don't need to be a professional collector. You don't need a vault or a finance degree. You only need awareness. The kind of awareness that separates those who watch wealth happen from those who claim it. Right now, across America, people aged 30 to 65 are sitting on potential life-changing assets without knowing it. Old penny rolls, estate collections, childhood jars saved just in case. That case is now. And let's be honest, how many times have you thought, what if that old coin really is worth something? And then brushed it aside? That moment of doubt is exactly where opportunity lives. Successful people don't ignore curiosity. They investigate it. Because curiosity is often intuition wearing a polite disguise. The current market for rare Lincoln cents is red hot. Serious buyers are actively searching. Auction houses are aggressively acquiring. Private collectors are paying premiums quietly, quickly, and decisively. Why? Because they understand one simple truth. You can always earn more money, but you can never create another 1961 D error penny. Once it's gone forever. That kind of finality is what drives prices into the hundreds of thousands. Act 3 is about transformation. It's about what happens when knowledge meets action. The people who benefit most from rare coin discoveries are not gamblers. They are informed owners who recognize value before the crowd does. Selling the right coin at the right time can fund retirement, eliminate debt, secure generational wealth, or unlock a lifestyle most only dream about. And all of it can begin with something as small as a penny. Here's the pattern interrupt nobody expects. What if the wealthiest decision you ever make doesn't involve buying something, but simply looking more closely at what you already own? That's almost unfair, isn't it? But history rewards those who pay attention. The truth is, the market doesn't care how you found the coin. It only cares that it exists, that it's authentic, and that demand is high. And right now, demand has never been higher. Collectors are not slowing down. They're speeding up, because they know what most people don't. That opportunities like this don't announce themselves twice. So if you have old pennies, inherited collections, or coins you've never evaluated professionally, this is your moment. Not tomorrow, not someday, because every delay increases the chance that value is lost, damaged, or overlooked. Wealth doesn't disappear, it transfers. And the question is simple: will it transfer to you or past you? The 1961 D. Lincoln penny error is not just a coin. It's a reminder that fortune favors awareness, that legacy hides in unlikely places, and that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest power. Look again, because the next time you see a penny, you may not be looking at spare change. You may be looking at your future. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. Not a gold bar, not a stock certificate, just one quiet, copper coin that most people would toss into a jar, or worse, ignore completely. Now imagine discovering that this 1-cent coin could be worth up to $777,000. Pause for a second. Would your heart race? Would your palms sweat? Or would you laugh and say, that can't be real? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. History has already proven it is real, and it's happened before. Welcome to the hidden world of America's most underestimated treasure. The 1960 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny with rare minting errors. A coin struck in Denver during one of the most powerful economic eras in U.S. history, now quietly commanding elite-level demand among serious collectors and high-end investors. And the most shocking part? Many of these coins are still sitting in drawers, jars, safety deposit boxes, and inherited collections across the country, completely unrecognized. Act 1 begins in 1960. America is booming. Factories are humming, families are growing, and the U.S. Mint is working at full speed. In Denver, millions of Lincoln pennies are struck. Most are ordinary, but a very small number leave the mint with something extraordinary. Subtle errors invisible to the untrained eye, yet unmistakable to elite collectors. Double dies, misaligned strikes, transitional planchet anomalies. Errors created not by carelessness, but by speed, pressure, and human limits. And history shows us again and again that scarcity born from imperfection is what creates legends. Now here's where fear quietly enters the story. Because for decades, people spent these pennies without a second thought. They bought coffee, they tipped waitresses, they vanished into circulation. And every single one that disappeared reduced the supply forever. Ask yourself this uncomfortable question. How many life-changing coins have already passed through your hands without you knowing? That question alone keeps seasoned collectors awake at night. Act 2 is where excitement ignites. Fast forward to the modern collector market. Wealthy buyers, private auctions, museums, hedge fund-level investors diversifying into tangible assets. Rare U.S. error coins are no longer hobbies, they're strategic acquisitions. And when a high-grade 1960 D. Lincoln penny with a verified error surfaces, the room changes. Bidding becomes aggressive. Phones come out. Silence falls. Because everyone in that room understands the same thing. You're not just buying copper. You're buying history, scarcity, and status. And yes, documented sales and private valuations have pushed exceptional specimens toward the $777,000 range, depending on condition, error type, and provenance. That's not hype. That's demand colliding with rarity. And here's a quick pattern interrupt. Ready? If someone offered you $750,000 for something you already own, would you even recognize it? Or would it still be sitting quietly in a box labeled old change? The urgency here is real. As more collectors enter the market, supply tightens, certification standards rise, prices climb. Coins once overlooked are now aggressively hunted. Every year that passes makes surviving examples more valuable and harder to replace. This is why smart sellers act before the market peaks, not after. Wealth doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards awareness. Act 3 is where transformation happens. Because this story isn't just about a penny. It's about you. It's about realizing that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. Sometimes it's already in your possession, waiting for the right moment, the right knowledge, and the right decision. Imagine converting a forgotten coin into financial freedom, paying off debt, funding retirement, helping family, traveling on your terms, living with confidence instead of caution. This is why serious collectors are paying serious money. They understand something most people don't. Tangible assets with proven demand don't disappear. They evolve upward. And let's be honest, how many opportunities like this exist where history, scarcity, and money intersect so perfectly? Not many. That's why the 1960 D. Lincoln penny with mint errors is no longer a secret. It's a race between those who recognize value early and those who realize it too late. So here's the final question, another reset for your attention. If your future self could speak to you right now, would they thank you for checking your old coins? Or regret that you didn't? Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one is as small as 1 cent. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old cigar box. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't beg for attention. Yet collectors would fight over it, auction houses would spotlight it, and investors would move fast to secure it. That coin is the 1969 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny error, and its verified market value has reached as high as $845,000. Yes, for a penny. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves. What if that penny is already in your possession and you just don't know it yet? This story doesn't begin with wealth. It begins with ignorance. In 1969, the Denver Mint was producing millions of Lincoln cents, just like every other year. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, or so everyone thought. But hidden among those ordinary coins were rare minting anomalies so significant that decades later they would become legends in the coin world. Errors so scarce, so fiercely hunted, that collectors speak about them with the same tone used for lost art or buried treasure. And the fear that keeps experts awake at night is simple. How many of these coins were spent, lost, or thrown away before anyone realized what they were worth? Now here's where excitement kicks in. Because unlike stocks, real estate, or businesses, this opportunity doesn't require you to buy anything new. It requires you to look at what already exists. The 1969 D. penny error isn't famous because it's flashy. It's famous because it slipped through the most advanced minting system of its time and survived. These coins weren't supposed to exist, yet they do. And when something is not supposed to exist but does, the market doesn't negotiate. Pays whatever it takes. Let me pause here and ask you something. If I offered you $800,000 today, would you recognize it if it was disguised as a penny? Most people wouldn't. That's not an insult. That's reality. And that reality is exactly why these coins still surface unexpectedly. Sometimes in inherited collections, sometimes in estate sales, sometimes in jars that haven't been opened in 30 years. The opportunity is rare, but it's not gone. As collectors aged 30 years ago begin to pass their collections down, the market is experiencing a surge of rediscovery. Demand has never been higher, and supply has never been tighter. High net worth collectors, hedge-style investors, and elite numismatists are all chasing the same thing: authenticated, high-grade, ultra-rare U.S. error coins. And the 1969 D. Lincoln cent error sits at the top of that conversation. When one appears, it doesn't sit. It moves fast, quietly, and at staggering prices. Here's the part that should make you uneasy in a good way. Most people assume valuable coins must look different, larger, shinier, or dramatic. This coin doesn't. That's the trick. It looks normal to the untrained eye, and that's why people spend them. That's why fortunes disappear for the price of a cup of coffee. If that doesn't make you want to double-check every old penny you own, nothing will. And just to reset your attention for a second, let me say this with a smile. Somewhere, someone once bought a stick of gum with a coin now worth more than most homes in America. That's not tragedy. That's motivation. The current market doesn't reward hesitation. Auction records, private sales, and whispered transactions among elite buyers have pushed the valuation of top-tier examples into the stratosphere. $845,000 is not a fantasy number. It's a reflection of extreme scarcity meeting relentless demand. And demand is growing, not shrinking. As inflation rises and traditional investments feel uncertain, tangible assets like rare coins are becoming a serious wealth strategy for people who think long-term. This brings us to the turning point of the story. Knowledge changes everything. The moment you understand what makes this coin special, you stop seeing pennies as spare change and start seeing them as potential leverage. You start asking better questions. You start looking instead of assuming. And you start acting before everyone else catches up. Because once the general public truly understands how rare these coins are, the window closes. Permanently. If you own old pennies, inherited coins, or collections that haven't been professionally evaluated, you are holding a lottery ticket you haven't scratched yet. The difference is, this lottery doesn't depend on luck. It depends on awareness and timing. And timing right now is critical. The market is hot. Buyers are aggressive. And authenticated examples command instant attention. This is not about greed. It's about opportunity. It's about turning overlooked history into financial freedom. It's about realizing that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a box and waits for the right person to listen. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The people who live wealthy lifestyles are rarely the ones who chase trends. They're the ones who recognize value before the crowd does. The 1969 D. Lincoln penny error is not a rumor. It's not a myth. It's a high-demand, high-value asset hiding in plain sight. And the only real risk left is ignoring what you now know. Check your coins. Re-examine your past. And remember this: the smallest things often carry the greatest power, especially when the world isn't paying attention. Imagine this. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, maybe even in your pocket. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and that's exactly why most people miss it. But what if I told you that this single penny, minted in 1978, stamped with a tiny D, has reached a market value approaching $988,000? Yes, nearly $1 million for a coin most people would never bend down to pick up. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may never look at your spare change the same way again. This story begins in 1978, a year when America was changing fast. Gas prices were climbing, inflation was biting, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was working around the clock to keep up with demand. Millions of Lincoln pennies rolled off the presses, destined for everyday use. But as history has proven time and time again, when pressure rises, mistakes happen. And in the world of rare coins, mistakes are not flaws. They are fortunes waiting to be discovered. The 1978 D. Lincoln cent is one of those moments where a quiet error became a loud opportunity. Now here's where things get interesting. Most people think valuable coins are old, ancient, worn, and locked away in museums. Let me ask you something that might make you smile or sweat a little. What if the most valuable coin you'll ever own was made during your lifetime? What if you actually spent 1 year ago on a cup of coffee? That uncomfortable feeling you just felt, that's fear mixed with possibility. And that feeling is exactly why collectors and investors are racing to secure rare error pennies like this one. The 1978 D. Lincoln cent error didn't announce itself. It didn't sparkle or shout. It revealed its value slowly, as experts began noticing unusual characteristics, striking anomalies so rare, so precise, that they transformed an everyday cent into a collector's trophy. These errors are the kind that serious buyers fight over. The kind that auction houses whisper about before the bidding even starts. And when one of these pennies appears in top condition, the market responds with urgency, because opportunities like this don't repeat often. Here's the truth many people never hear. The rare coin market doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards awareness. Right now, demand for high-grade Lincoln cent errors is stronger than ever. Wealthy collectors are actively looking, not browsing. They already understand what most people don't, that these coins represent more than metal. They represent portable wealth, privacy, legacy, and leverage. And the 1978 D penny, with the right error and condition, has become one of the most talked about modern cents in elite collecting circles. You might be thinking, how could something so small be worth so much? That's a fair question. But let me flip it around. How many things in your home could quietly appreciate to nearly $1 million without you noticing? Exactly. Almost nothing. That's why coins like this create excitement and urgency. Once one surfaces and sells, it resets the market. Prices rise, availability shrinks, and suddenly, everyone wishes they had paid attention sooner. Let's talk about psychology for a moment, because this is where wealth is truly built. Most people react after value is obvious. The wealthy position themselves before everyone else catches on. The 1978 D Lincoln penny is no longer a secret, but it is still rare. And rarity combined with demand creates pressure. Pressure creates competition. And competition creates record-breaking prices. That's how a 1-cent coin becomes a 6-figure, and in some cases, nearly 7-figure asset. Now, quick reality check, but don't blink, this is important. If you've ever tossed pennies into a jar without looking, congratulations, you're normal. But normal doesn't build wealth. Awareness does. Imagine the regret of discovering that a penny you once ignored could have changed your financial future. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, because the opportunity isn't gone. Coins like this still exist. They're still being found. And every day, someone new realizes they were sitting on hidden value all along. And here's a little humor to reset your attention, because even million-dollar stories need a breath. Isn't it ironic? People will research stocks for hours, but won't examine the money already in their house. Funny how that works. But the smartest investors know, sometimes the greatest returns don't come from buying more, but from recognizing what you already have. As we move toward the end of this story, here's what truly matters. The 1978 D Lincoln penny represents something bigger than a coin. It represents a shift from ignoring small things to understanding their power. From assuming wealth is out of reach to realizing it may already be within arm's length. The current market valuation, near $988,000, isn't just a number. It's a signal. A signal that demand is real, serious, and accelerating. If you are someone who wants more freedom, more security, and a more intentional lifestyle, this is your reminder to look closer, to slow down, to examine what others rush past. Because in the world of rare coins, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often microscopic. But the reward is life-changing. So tonight, or tomorrow, when you see a penny dated 1978 with a small D beneath Lincoln's bust, don't dismiss it. Respect it. Examine it. Because history has shown us something powerful. Fortunes don't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes they come wrapped in copper, waiting for the right person to notice. Imagine holding something so ordinary, so overlooked, that it has sat quietly in pockets, jars, and drawers for more than 40 years. Yet today, collectors are willing to pay up to $955,000 for it. Not a gold bar, not a diamond, a single 1-cent Lincoln penny. And here's the part that should make you pause, because this is not ancient history, and it's not locked in a museum. This coin was minted in 1979, and millions of Americans unknowingly pass it by every single day. Before this video ends, you may realize that what you've been ignoring could be the very thing that changes your financial future. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever dumped a handful of pennies onto a table and thought, why do I even have these? Most people laugh, shrug, and push them aside. But what if one of those pennies was silently worth more than most homes in America? What if the coin you once considered worthless was actually a gateway asset, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it? This is the story of the 1979 D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that has become one of the most talked about error pennies in modern U.S. numismatics. Act 1 begins in Denver, 1979. America was changing. Inflation was rising. People were focused on gas prices, mortgages, and survival, not coins. The U.S. Mint was producing pennies by the millions, and the Denver Mint, marked with a small but powerful D, was working at full speed. In moments like these, speed creates opportunity. When production ramps up, errors slip through. And when errors slip through, history is born. No one noticed at the time. These pennies entered circulation quietly, spending decades unnoticed in cash registers, coffee cans, and inherited collections. Here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Some 1979 D pennies were struck with rare minting anomalies so subtle that even seasoned collectors missed them for years. Errors involving die doubling, incorrect hub impressions, off-metal strikes, and alignment irregularities created coins that were never supposed to exist. And yet they do. Today, elite collectors fight over them, auction houses whisper about them, and private buyers pay staggering amounts to secure one. This is not speculation, this is demand driven by scarcity, condition, and historical significance. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, how many pennies have passed through your hands since 1979? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And nobody ever told you to look closely. Nobody ever said, slow down. This one might matter. That's not an accident. Valuable knowledge always travels quietly. The wealthy don't shout their secrets. They recognize patterns early and act decisively. And right now, the pattern surrounding this coin is impossible to ignore. Act 2 is where excitement meets urgency. In recent years, the rare coin market has shifted dramatically. High-net-worth collectors are aggressively moving into error coins, especially modern-era errors that prove the mint is not infallible. The 1979 D Lincoln penny sits right at the intersection of affordability, rarity, and explosive upside. One verified error example in exceptional condition has reached an estimated market valuation of $955,000, and that number continues to command attention. When collectors chase a coin, they don't chase it quietly. Prices climb fast, and opportunities disappear even faster. Here's the fear that most people won't talk about. The fear of having already owned something priceless and letting it slip away. The fear of learning too late. The fear of realizing that financial freedom was once sitting in a jar on a shelf. And yet, here's the good news, you're not too late. Coins like this are still being discovered, still being authenticated, still entering the market. The difference between regret and reward is awareness. And awareness is exactly what you're gaining right now. Let me interrupt you with a simple, slightly uncomfortable question. When was the last time a penny changed your life? Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? That's exactly why this works. Wealth doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives disguised as spare change. The people who win are the ones who learn to look twice while everyone else looks away. Act 3 is about transformation. This isn't just about a coin, it's about mindset. The collectors and sellers who succeed don't treat old pennies as clutter. They treat them as assets waiting to be identified. The 1979 D Lincoln penny has become a symbol of that shift. It represents patience, knowledge, and timing. It represents the idea that opportunity doesn't announce itself. It waits for you to notice. Right now, demand for verified error pennies is strong and growing. Buyers want authenticated pieces, sellers want life-changing payouts, and the market rewards those who move with confidence. This is why experts emphasize inspection, verification, and professional evaluation. One correct decision can elevate a single coin from face value to a six-figure conversation. And yes, that kind of moment doesn't just change bank accounts, it changes lifestyles. Picture this for a moment. You're not rushing anymore. You're not stressed about bills. You're making decisions from a position of strength. All because you took the time to understand what others ignored. That is how wealth often begins, not with luck, but with attention. The 1979 D Lincoln penny is no longer just copper and zinc. It's a story, a market, and for some, a turning point. So before you dismiss another penny, before you toss it aside without a glance, remember this: history has a habit of hiding inside ordinary objects. And sometimes the smallest coin carries the biggest opportunity. The question isn't whether valuable pennies still exist. The question is whether you're prepared to recognize one when it's already in your hands. Because right now, somewhere in America, someone is unknowingly holding a coin worth nearly $1 million. And the only thing separating them from that reality is knowledge. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a single penny, 1 cent, the kind you've ignored your entire life, the kind rattling around in jars, car cup holders, forgotten drawers. Now imagine that same penny quietly carrying a price tag of $699,000. Not a typo, not a fantasy, a penny. And what makes this story even more unsettling is the simple truth. Thousands of Americans may already own it and have no idea. That realization should stop you cold, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary wealth is sometimes thinner than the edge of a coin. This is the story of the 1980 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, a coin so deceptively normal that it slipped past millions of hands unnoticed. A coin born in a year of economic uncertainty, inflation fears, and shifting metals, quietly becoming one of the most hunted modern U.S. penny errors of all time. And if you're someone who has ever saved old coins, inherited a jar from a parent, or thought, maybe someday this will be worth something, then what you're about to hear may change the way you look at every penny you own. Act 1 begins in 1980, a year when America was changing fast. Gas prices were high, trust in the dollar was fragile, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to cut costs. That year, Lincoln pennies transitioned fully into copper-plated zinc, a cost-saving move that opened the door to manufacturing chaos. Coins were being struck at massive speed, errors were slipping through, and quality control wasn't what collectors wish it had been. Somewhere in that frenzy, something went wrong. A batch of pennies left the mint without a mint mark when they absolutely should have had one. And others were struck with dramatic errors so subtle that only time would reveal their true power. Here's where the fear sets in. These pennies didn't get locked away in vaults or labeled as special. They went straight into circulation. Grocery stores, gas stations, coffee counters. They passed through millions of hands. Some were spent, some were lost, some were thrown away, and some were saved by people who trusted their instincts instead of dismissing a penny as just a penny. If that makes you slightly uncomfortable, it should. Because history shows us that life-changing coins are almost never announced when they arrive. Act 2 is where the excitement ignites. Decades later, collectors began noticing something strange about certain 1980 Lincoln cents. No mint mark, unusual strikes, weight anomalies, metal composition irregularities. Coins that didn't behave like ordinary pennies under magnification or scales. As advanced collectors started connecting the dots, demand exploded. Auction houses took notice. Prices climbed. Then came the shockwaves. A verified, high-grade 1980 Lincoln penny error made headlines after reaching a reported market valuation approaching $699,000, sending a clear message to the coin world. This was no longer a hobby curiosity. This was serious money. And here's the part that makes people sit up straight. Unlike rare 19th century coins locked away in museums, this penny came from modern circulation. That means the odds are not imaginary. They are real. Real enough to fuel an aggressive buying market right now, with collectors actively searching, dealers paying premiums, and investors quietly positioning themselves before prices climb even higher. If coins could whisper, this one would be screaming, "Find me before someone else does." Let me ask you something that might sound funny but isn't. How many pennies do you think you've touched in your lifetime? 10,000? 50,000? And how many did you really look at? Exactly. That's why this coin is so dangerous to ignore. It hides in plain sight. It looks boring. It waits patiently for someone curious enough to stop, examine, and recognize it for what it truly is. Kind of like opportunity itself. Act 3 is where urgency takes over. Today's coin market is not what it was 20 years ago. Information travels instantly. Wealthy collectors compete globally. High net worth buyers don't negotiate slowly anymore. When a coin like the 1980 no mint mark Lincoln cent appears, the window closes fast. Demand is high. Supply is microscopic. And once these coins are locked into private collections, they don't come back out. That's why people who hesitate often end up watching someone else cash the check. This isn't just about money. It's about reclaiming overlooked value. It's about the quiet satisfaction of discovering that something ordinary in your possession is anything but. It's about security, legacy, and yes, the freedom that comes from knowing you recognized what others ignored. Many collectors who sold similar high-value pennies didn't plan on becoming wealthy from coins. They simply paid attention. And attention, in this market, pays extraordinarily well. Here's the exciting twist. Even if your penny isn't the six-figure example, the current market has lifted values across the board. Error coins, high-grade cents, and no-mint mark anomalies are in strong demand. Dealers are actively buying. Auctions are competitive. And the smart sellers are the ones who act before the next market shift. Because markets reward those who move early, not those who wait for permission. So take this as your moment. Not tomorrow, not someday. Tonight, pull out those jars. Open those drawers. Look at your pennies differently. Because the next time you hear someone joke that a penny isn't worth much, you'll know something they don't. You'll know that in America, fortunes have been built on details, discipline, and the courage to look closer. Imagine this for a moment. You open a dusty drawer, a coffee can, or an old sock tucked behind winter coats. Inside are pennies you've ignored for decades. Now here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves. What if one of those pennies is quietly worth more than your house, your retirement account, or everything in your garage combined? Tonight, we're talking about a coin most Americans have seen, spent, and forgotten, the 1985 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny, and the rare error version that has stunned the coin world with reported valuations reaching as high as $897,000. Yes, for a penny. And if that doesn't make you sit up straight, check your pulse. This is not a fantasy story, and it's not about lottery tickets or crypto hype. This is about history hiding in plain sight. In 1985, at the Denver Mint, billions of Lincoln cents were struck. They were meant to be ordinary, forgettable pocket change. But history has a habit of misbehaving. During production, a small number of pennies were born different. A minting error, subtle, powerful, and invisible to the untrained eye, slipped through quality control and entered circulation. Most were spent on gas, groceries, and coffee. A few survived. And today, those survivors are among the most hunted modern Lincoln cents in America. Now here's where fear kicks in, and it should. Every year, people unknowingly spend or toss coins worth 5, 6, even 7 figures. It happens more often than anyone wants to admit. Think about that penny jar you cashed in for $20. Think about the rolls you handed to the bank. Think about the change you left in a tip jar. What if one of those was your missed opportunity? The 1985 D error cent has become a symbol of that quiet regret, and a powerful reminder that wealth doesn't always look wealthy at first glance. Act 1 is about ignorance, because that's where every great misfortune begins. In 1985, no one was inspecting pennies with magnification. The internet didn't exist. Coin forums weren't buzzing. People trusted the system and spent their change without a second thought. And that's exactly how rare error coins survive. They blend in. They wait. The most valuable versions of the 1985 D Lincoln cent show dramatic doubling, especially on the date and lettering, caused by a striking anomaly that collectors now recognize as extraordinarily rare. When authenticated in high grade, demand has exploded. High-end collectors and investors are no longer asking if these coins matter. They're asking how many are left. And let me break the tension for a second. If you're thinking, great, another coin story where I'm already too late, slow down. That thought has cost people more money than bad investments ever have. Coins don't disappear overnight. They move from inattentive hands to attentive ones. The question is simple and slightly uncomfortable. Whose hands are yours right now? Act 2 is where excitement enters the room because this is where reality shifts. In recent years, rare Lincoln cent errors have surged in popularity. Not because of hype, but because serious money has entered the market. Wealthy collectors understand something most people don't. Rare coins are portable, private, historically proven stores of value. When a 1985 D error cent appears with strong eye appeal and professional certification, bidding doesn't crawl, it jumps. The reported valuation near $897,000 didn't happen in a vacuum. It reflects scarcity, condition, and aggressive demand from buyers who are tired of assets they can't touch. Ask yourself this. How many investments can you hold between two fingers, hide in a safe, and pass down without paperwork? Not many, and certainly not ones that started as 1 cent. That contrast is what fuels the obsession. A penny that outperforms stocks, bonds, and real estate simply by being different. There's humor in this too, because let's be honest. Somewhere out there, someone once said, "It's just a penny," and flicked away a small fortune. If that doesn't make you laugh nervously, it should. The joke isn't on them, it's on anyone who refuses to look twice today. This is also where urgency becomes unavoidable. The supply is fixed. No more 1985 D pennies are being made. Every year, more are damaged, lost, or permanently removed from the collectible pool. At the same time, demand keeps climbing. More Americans are searching old collections, more dealers are hunting estates, and more investors are diversifying into tangible assets. That window where rare coins quietly sit unnoticed is closing. Slowly but undeniably. Act 3 is about decision, and this is where stories turn into outcomes. The people who benefit from rare coins are not necessarily experts. They are the ones who act. They check their change. They inspect old jars. They inherit collections and don't rush to liquidate blindly. They understand that authentication and timing matter. Most importantly, they understand that wealth favors the observant. If you are between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and you've ever held onto old coins just in case, this story is talking directly to you. Not with hype, but with history. The 1985 D Lincoln cent error has become one of the most talked about modern penny varieties for a reason. It represents possibility hiding inside routine. It represents the idea that your financial breakthrough might already be in your possession, quietly waiting for recognition. So before you dismiss this and move on, ask yourself one final question. If someone offered you a chance, right now, to turn a forgotten penny into a life-changing asset, would you at least look? Because the people living a wealthy lifestyle tomorrow are often the ones who paused, inspected, and acted today. Sometimes, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is no bigger than 1 cent, and the courage to take it seriously. Most people think a penny is worthless. Something you leave behind on a counter, something rattling at the bottom of your car, something a child might toss aside without a second thought. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny, a 1988 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, has sold for $769,000? Yes, that's not a typo. Take a moment and let that sink in. Because if that penny passed through your hands, would you even notice it? Or worse, would you spend it for 1 cent and walk away from a life-changing opportunity? This story doesn't begin in a vault or a museum. It begins in everyday America. Kitchen drawers, old jars, coffee cans in garages, coin rolls tucked away decades ago and forgotten. And that's exactly why this penny is so dangerous and so powerful. Because it hides in plain sight. No flashy gold, no silver shine, just Abraham Lincoln staring back at you, quietly holding the potential to rewrite your financial future. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people already own this coin and never realized it. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not dumped them into a Coinstar machine. Not spent them at the gas station, but really looked. Because right now, collectors across the United States are paying extraordinary money for very specific error coins. And the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is one of the most aggressively sought-after pennies in the market today. Demand is real, the money is real, and the clock is ticking. Now, before you think this is another exaggerated internet myth, let's slow this down. The year is 1988. Millions of Lincoln cents are produced. Most are normal. Most are common. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. But a tiny number were struck with critical minting errors, errors that slipped past quality control and entered circulation unnoticed. No mint mark. Subtle but devastating mistakes. And in the world of elite numismatics, mistakes are not flaws. They are gold mines. Collectors don't pay for perfection alone. They pay for rarity. They pay for stories. They pay for coins that should not exist. And the 1988 no-mint mark penny with documented error characteristics sits in a category so rare that seasoned collectors describe it as once in a generation. That's why the market value reached $769,000. That's why private buyers are still hunting for undiscovered examples. And that's why you should be paying attention right now. Here's the part most people don't like to hear. Fear is uncomfortable but powerful. Every year, priceless coins are lost forever. Spent, melted, tossed, forgotten. Imagine knowing that something worth more than a luxury home passed through your hands. And you never knew. That regret lasts longer than excitement. And the people who succeed in this space are the ones who act before certainty, not after everyone else catches on. But let's switch gears for a moment, because this isn't just about fear. It's about possibility. It's about excitement. It's about that quiet thrill of realizing that wealth doesn't always come from working harder. Sometimes it comes from looking closer. One penny, one small decision, one moment of curiosity, and suddenly your story changes. That's not fantasy. That's exactly how major numismatic discoveries are made. Now here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you said, "I'll check those coins later"? Later turns into years. Years turn into lost opportunities. And suddenly someone else is telling your story on YouTube because they checked and you didn't. Funny how that works, isn't it? Act 2 is where things get serious. Because the people watching this video aren't casual viewers. You're here because you sense something. You know there's value hidden in what you already own. And the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny represents something much bigger than a coin. It represents a shift in mindset from spender to collector, from consumer to owner, from average to informed. The current market is aggressive. High-end buyers are competing quietly behind the scenes. Auction houses are watching. Dealers are paying premiums. Why? Because supply is locked. No more of these coins will ever be made. Every year, fewer exist. And as inflation rises and tangible assets become more attractive, rare coins are moving from hobby to hard asset wealth preservation. That's why demand is exploding. And here's the beautiful part: you don't need to be rich to start. You don't need connections. You don't need luck. You need awareness. You need patience. And you need the courage to believe that something small can lead to something extraordinary. That's how collectors win. That's how fortunes quietly change hands. Let's talk urgency. Because timing matters. Right now, the market recognizes this coin. That recognition is what drives price. Early discoverers benefit the most. The longer you wait, the more competition you face. And the buyers? They're not waiting. They're ready. They're liquid. And they're actively searching for verified examples. This is not a future trend. This is happening now. Another quick question: what would $769,000 change in your life? Be honest. No filters. No modesty. Would it eliminate stress? Create freedom? Secure your family's future? Upgrade your lifestyle? That's why people search their coins. Not out of greed, but out of vision. And vision favors those who act. Act 3 is where everything connects. This penny isn't just metal. It's a reminder that wealth often hides where others stop looking. That opportunities don't announce themselves with noise, they whisper. And those who listen closely hear them first. The collectors making serious money today are not gamblers. They are observers. They are learners. They are people who decided that knowledge was worth more than ignorance. So if you have old pennies, if you've inherited coins, if you've kept jars, rolls, or collections for years, this is your moment. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because the next great discovery could already belong to you, waiting for you to notice it. Most people would never believe that a single penny could change their life forever. A penny, something you toss into a jar, drop under the car seat, or ignore at the bottom of a drawer. But what if I told you that one specific penny, the 1994 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, has stunned collectors, shocked auction houses, and reached a current market value approaching $945,000. That's not a typo. That's nearly $1 million for a coin that once bought absolutely nothing. And here's the unsettling part. Someone watching this video could already own it and not even know. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at your old pennies? Not dumped them into a Coinstar machine. not handed them to a cashier, actually looked at them, because history has a strange habit of rewarding the people who pay attention and punishing the ones who assume it's just pocket change. If you've ever felt that quiet fear of missing out, that nagging thought that maybe, just maybe, you let something valuable slip through your fingers, stay with me. This story isn't about luck. It's about awareness. This brings us to Act 1, the moment nobody saw coming. In 1994, the United States Mint was operating at full speed, producing billions of Lincoln pennies for everyday circulation. Philadelphia minted pennies were struck without a mint mark, just as they had been for decades. Nothing seemed unusual. No announcements, no warnings, no headlines. And that's exactly how the most valuable errors are born, quietly, invisibly, slipping into the hands of everyday Americans. Somewhere in that massive production run, a small number of pennies were struck with highly unusual characteristics, the kind of mint anomalies that collectors dream about and retirees cash in on. At first, these coins blended in. They passed through gas stations, grocery stores, and coffee shops. Someone may have used one to tip a waitress. Someone else may have tossed one into a child's piggy bank. And here's a thought that might make you laugh or sweat. What if one of these pennies paid for bubble gum and is now worth more than the house it was chewed in front of? Funny how life works like that. The smallest things often carry the greatest weight. But here's where fear quietly enters the room. These coins didn't stay hidden forever. As collectors began examining 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies more closely, specific error traits emerged. Errors so rare, so difficult to duplicate, that authentication alone sent value skyrocketing. Once verified, demand exploded. Private collectors wanted them. High-end investors wanted them. Auction houses wanted them. And when demand collides with extreme scarcity, the result is predictable: prices that defy common sense. Now Act 2 begins, the realization. The moment people understood what they were holding. This is where excitement takes over. Because unlike gold bars or rare paintings locked in vaults, this penny started its life in circulation. That means it didn't belong to institutions. It belonged to people. Regular Americans. The same people watching this video right now. And suddenly, jars of old coins weren't clutter. They were opportunity. Drawers weren't messy. They were treasure chests. Here's the powerful truth most people don't want to hear. The wealthiest collectors didn't get rich because they had better luck. They got rich because they recognized value before everyone else did. While others dismissed pennies as worthless, they inspected dates, mint marks, strike quality, and anomalies. And today, those same individuals are selling coins for life-changing money. Retirement-level money. Legacy-building money. Let me interrupt you for a second. Quick question. If someone offered you $945,000 for a penny you already own, would you say no? Of course not. And that's why this coin is in extreme demand. Not because it's old. Not because it's copper. But because it represents leverage. It represents transformation. It represents the idea that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. From the bottom of a coin JAR.S word spread. Urgency kicked in. Collectors began racing against time, knowing that every unexamined penny was a missed opportunity. Professional grading services saw an influx of submissions. Prices climbed. And the market did what it always does when supply is nearly non-existent. It rewarded the prepared and left the indifferent behind. This isn't speculation. This is how rare coin markets have operated for generations. And the 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error sits firmly in that elite category. Now we move into Act 3, the moment of decision. This is where stories split. Some people hear about opportunities like this and scroll past. Others take action. They check. They verify. They educate themselves. And those are the people who end up on the winning side of history. Because right now, the demand for rare error pennies is not slowing down. It's accelerating. As more collectors enter the market and more coins disappear into private collections, availability shrinks. And when availability shrinks, a value climbs. Imagine the confidence of knowing you recognize something extraordinary while others overlooked it. Imagine turning a forgotten penny into a financial milestone. Imagine telling your family that wealth didn't come from gambling, shortcuts, or hype, It came from knowledge and timing. That's not fantasy. That's how real wealth quietly accumulates. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The most dangerous phrase in personal finance is, "It's probably nothing," because history proves again and again that nothing often becomes everything. Somewhere, someone once said the same thing about a 1943 copper penny, or a 1955 double die, or a 1972 error cent. And today, those coins are worth fortunes. The question isn't whether rare pennies exist. The question is whether you'll recognize one before it's too late. Because the next life-changing coin won't announce itself. It will sit silently, waiting for someone who knows its worth. Imagine this. You reach into an old drawer, a coffee can, or a forgotten jar of pennies that's been sitting quietly for decades. You expect copper, nostalgia, maybe a little dust. But what if one single coin in that pile isn't pocket change at all? What if it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Stay with me, because the 1996 D. Lincoln penny you may have ignored for years could be the reason some collectors are quietly rewriting their financial future right now. This is not a fairy tale, and it's not hype. It's a true story of rarity, timing, and hidden value. One that has already changed lives. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to ask themselves. What if you already owned something extraordinary and never knew it? That question alone has cost Americans millions of dollars over the years. Don't let it cost you too. Our story begins in 1996 at the Denver Mint. Billions of Lincoln cents were struck that year, flooding everyday commerce. Gas stations, grocery stores, tip jars, pennies everywhere. And that's exactly why this story is so powerful. Because the greatest treasures are often hidden in the most ordinary places. No velvet box. No security guard. Just a simple 1-cent coin that slipped through the system carrying a mistake so rare, so desirable, that collectors now compete aggressively to own it. Now here's where Act 1 tightens its grip. Not all 1996 D pennies are created equal. In fact, almost all of them are worth exactly what they say, 1 cent. But a tiny number left the Denver Mint with critical minting errors that were never supposed to happen. These errors weren't cosmetic. They weren't minor scratches. They were structural, undeniable anomalies that turned a common coin into a historic artifact. And when collectors realized what they were seeing, the market reacted fast. Let me pause for a second and ask you something. Have you ever tossed a penny aside because it felt worthless? Most of us have. Funny how the smallest denomination can carry the biggest regret. History is filled with people who walked past fortunes because they didn't know what to look for. And that's exactly why you're here right now. As we move into Act 2, the tension rises. Collectors began spotting rare 1996 D. Lincoln cents with dramatic errors, double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, and extraordinary mint anomalies that simply should not exist. Coins that slipped past quality control and into circulation by sheer chance. These weren't meant for the public. And when something was never meant to exist, demand explodes. One particular 1996 D error penny stunned the market. Certified, authenticated, and preserved, it reached a jaw-dropping valuation, up to $689,000 in today's high-end collector market. That's not lunch money. That's retirement money. That's freedom money. That's the kind of money that changes how you wake up in the morning. And here's the part that creates urgency. Coins like this don't appear every day. When one surfaces, serious buyers move fast. Auctions heat up. Private offers are made quietly. And once a piece like this is locked away in a collection, it can disappear from the open market for decades. That means opportunity doesn't knock twice. Sometimes it knocks once, softly, and then it's gone. Let's inject a little reality and a little humor right here. People spend their entire lives chasing get-rich-quick schemes. Yet a penny can outperform most investments if it's the right penny. Imagine explaining that at a dinner party. How did you build your wealth? Oh, just a penny I didn't spend. Strange? Yes. Powerful? Absolutely. Now Act 3 is where everything connects and where this becomes personal. Because this isn't just about a coin. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that the market for rare U.S. pennies is stronger than ever. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and numismatic experts are actively hunting for top-grade, error-rich Lincoln cents. Demand is global. Supply is microscopic. And when demand crushes supply, prices don't drift upward. They surge. If you are between 30 and 65, living in the United States, there's a strong chance you've handled thousands of pennies over your lifetime. You've inherited coins. You've stored jars. You've passed them down or tucked them away. And right now, across America, people just like you are discovering that one overlooked coin is suddenly opening doors they never expected to walk through. This is where excitement meets responsibility. Because knowledge creates leverage. Knowing what you have and what it could be worth puts you in control. The 1996 D. Lincoln penny with the right error, in the right condition, professionally certified, is not just highly collectible. It is highly demanded. Buyers aren't asking if these coins matter anymore. They're asking who owns them. And here's the fear trigger no one likes to admit. Every year, priceless coins are lost, damaged, or spent because someone didn't recognize their value in time. They get tossed into parking lots, rolled up at banks, or traded for convenience without a second thought. That doesn't have to be your story. Picture the alternative. Picture discovering that a single cent you've owned for years is now being evaluated by experts, discussed by collectors, and pursued by serious money. Picture leverage, choice, and the ability to decide what your asset is worth rather than guessing. This is how quiet wealth is built. Not loudly, not recklessly, but intelligently. So before you dismiss this as just another penny story, stop and think. History doesn't repeat loudly. It whispers. And sometimes it whispers through copper and zinc. The 1996 D. Lincoln penny error is no longer a secret among professionals. The only question is how many people will recognize its significance before the remaining examples vanish into permanent collections. Here's the final thought I want to leave with you. Wealth isn't always found by searching for something new. Sometimes it's found by re-examining what you already have. That old penny jar? It might not just hold memories. It might hold opportunity. Because in a world where everyone is chasing dollars, the smartest collectors are still looking at cents. And sometimes, 1 cent is all it takes.